All right, thank you very much, and thank you to all you shareholders in the room. I appreciate that. Our news release this morning was announcing our new inferred pit-constrained resource of 4 million ounces at 0.6, so a very substantial resource upgrade for us from 900,000 that we had up to this point. That was including 40,000 meters of drilling, added 3.1 million ounces over 2 years. So pretty nice to see that we're able to achieve that with a pretty modest amount of drilling. And it really sets us up well for this year. So just for the metrics, for those of you, we're just started, or we're well into our 2022 drill program with over 17,000 meters drilled and planned for around 30 to 35,000 meters this year. So targeting what we think is higher grade at our POWERLINE resource. But really, what do you need to be a Tier 1 asset, which is what our goal is, to become a Tier 1 asset, which for those of you that know, majors are, for them to classify it as a Tier 1 asset, you need to have 5 million ounces, needs to be economic, have the other attributes which our project has, infrastructure, we've got roads, we've got a main power line right to the hydroelectric dam across our resource area. We've got a very focused management team, which has all the skills which we need to continue to advance this and de-risk this project, moving it both to increased ounces as well as down that pipeline towards what would be an economic project. And we're year-round. We're different than many of the other great Yukon stories you're going to hear today. We started drilling January 26th and we drilled to December 20th. We're Yukoners, we know how to operate that way, and actually it's way more efficient. This is going to let us move this project forward far more rapidly than many of the other companies working in this jurisdiction. So our board, pretty lean and mean team. Most recently, we added Mark Blythe to the board to bring a wealth of mining experience. He works for mining companies all over the world and is on the board of other junior mining companies, and we'll need that as we move into our PEA, which we're planning for next year. We have Steve Burleton and David Reed also bring a wealth of experience in M&A and capital markets and legal. James Tom is our exploration manager in the field. He's the guy who's doing most of the work out there, and I have to give him credit for all the hard work, along with Paul Gray, who's our VP of Exploration and also does double duty with Victoria Gold. So pretty lean team. Jasmine's also here. She's our VP of Corporate Communications, and that's both investor relations as well as community, because that's so important as we move into the next 4 phases for Banyan. So Banyan was really fortunate. We financed last summer in July and raised $16 million, which for us gets us pretty far down the road, gets us that 30,000 meters we drilled last year plus 30 to 35 this year with some really solid shareholders. We're really lucky to have Victoria Gold as a 13% shareholder, Osisko Development as a 5% shareholder, and other institutions at 19%, and Franklin at 8%. And they're a good long-holding shareholder and has been very, very supportive. You'll also notice that, and a question I always ask is how much does management hold and how much have they purchased in the market and in financing? And if you look at SETI, you'll see in the last 2 years, I've put in over 900,000 in every financing and 100,000 in the market. So I've got a 5.5% stake. I'm the 3rd CEO of this company. I became the president in 2016, so there was no founder's stock for me. All of that position I've acquired either in the market or financings alongside my shareholders, and that motivates me to get the best share price for all my shareholders, and you'll have seen that our share price has actually held in pretty well. It's largely because we've really been able to be pretty selective in who we've included in our financings and had some great market support because of that. We also have analyst coverage. Cormark picked us up about a month and a half ago. Their price target of $1.25. I believe they put a little update out this morning after the news release. And Brock Saylor at Sprott put out a little piece. I think there'll be another update coming out fairly soon from Brock after he runs his own models. We do put all of our data up on the website and all the caller locations, and that enables anyone who wants to take a deeper look to do that. I'm not going to belabor the Yukon, because if you're sitting in this room, you've heard a few stories about the Yukon. It's a great jurisdiction. There's some fabulous companies working there, and I believe that it is a jurisdiction where we're going to make many more discoveries, and there's lots of minerals, gold, silver, zinc, that's going to be discovered, and the majors are just starting to take a look at it, and you can see that with the investment they've made in various companies in the Yukon, and I think that's going to continue as we continue to produce Tier 1 assets in the Yukon. And we're right beside 2 of the producing mines in the Yukon, Alexco and Victoria Gold. It's a great place to be right beside 2 producing mines. So here's just a plan map showing the pit-constrained resource. The orange is a plan map projection of the pit outline. All of the black drill holes are included in the resource, the black dots. You can see our drill patterns pretty continuous. We tend to drill this inferred resource off at 100-meter spacing. All of the red holes, or the red dots, are what we've actually drilled this year already, and the green is our current planned drill holes. You can see that if you just look by area, we have a very significant increase from our last resource. You can see most of the resource is actually at POWERLINE with 2.9 million ounces, and that's where the bulk of the growth is. We found through that the east-west trend through the POWERLINE, we're starting to see higher grades on both sides, and we've already drilled some of the areas which we think are very exciting for that. You can see to the west, we've already stepped out over 1.2 kilometers, including some 300-meter step-outs there to the west in our drilling, and then to the east, we've stepped out 600 meters from the known mineralization. So, this is just a snapshot in time, this 4 million ounces. We're continuing to very aggressively move this forward and build ounces. We believe that this property has the potential to be a tier 1 asset, and we intend to get it there. You can see our exchange rate there and gold price that we used on this updated resource. So pretty excited about continuing to grow it. In terms of sensitivity to cutoff grade, people ask, well, why did you pick 0.2? We picked 0.2 because that's likely what a grade would be for a large heap leach project. And it's too early to start increasing the cutoff grade to look for higher grade. We know it's there. If you look at the sensitivity chart, if you were increase the grade by 50% to 0.3 cutoff, it still hangs together as a pit-constrained mineable deposit, but the grade goes up to 0.72. And, if you get it up to 0.5, you still end up with 2.5 million ounces between Airstrip and POWERLINE, and the grade's close to 1 gram. So, yeah, there's lots you can do with cutoff grade here, but it's still early days in our opinion. We know that we can continue to grow this. This year's program is focused on finding some higher grade, potentially some starter pit areas, as well as continuing to look a little bit further afield with some of the distal high value targets, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Here's just a snapshot looking at the block model of POWERLINE. The POWERLINE deposit are these series of layers of concentrations of sheeted veins. You can see them here in one section. You can see the pit. This is a low strip ratio potential open pit mine, very similar to our neighbor, Victoria Gold. So as I said, we've got a pretty clear plan this year with our exploration program well underway, continuing to look for that high-grade starter area, and also supporting the work for our PEA. One of the things that we're going to do almost immediately after putting this resource out is start to talk to the engineers about what a real mining pit looks like. We all know that inferred resources are different than what you're actually going to potentially mine. And so starting to know where we need to drill to optimize that, what other work we need to do to really improve the economics of that is something we plan to do this year, well in advance of putting together that PEA in 2023. And just for comparison, those that know the Victoria Gold story, our neighbor just 50 kilometers away, that mine started with a reserve of 2.6 million ounces, a grade of 0.64, recoveries of 74%. So for context, it's important to keep that in your mind. It is a district. They also have a very large resource at Victoria Gold, and it's continuing to grow with them drilling at depth. And in the region, they have 550 square kilometers. So that mine was built with a 10-year mine life, but I really think that we're going to see it's a district that's going to run for 20 years with what they're finding. This similarly is a very large deposit. And have we found the best? Have we found the edges yet? No, this is still open. All three of these deposits remain open. We believe we'll likely see POWERLINE and Airstrip or Oryx Hill come together, and you can see that with our drill plan. We made the original discovery at POWERLINE blind. Do we think that we found the best location yet? No. We drilled in an area right beside the highway, where those pink dots are there, right beside the highway, because Victoria Gold had cleared right near there for their substation, and we thought it fit our model. And then because we hit mineralization, we started with just doing 50-meter step-outs all around. We could see the mineralization. There was no soil anomaly to guide us. And now we're starting to understand what's going on geochemically, structurally, and from the geophysics, and put the whole picture together. And that's really helping us to target both higher grade and see that there's lots more area that we need to explore. In this image, you can see a cross-section which is showing some of that higher grade that's going east-west underneath the substation and through the POWERLINE deposit. 72 meters of 1.43 over 47 meters right from surface. And for those of you that saw our other most recent press releases, 3 grams over 21 meters right from surface, 1.73 over 72 meters. Pretty excited about what we're finding there and where we're going. And here's just looking at the soil anomaly, which will help guide some of our next exploration off to the east. To the west, you can see we don't have a soil anomaly to guide us. You can see there is one under Airstrip where the original exploration was done, but we have a very large target area there off to the east. You can see we're starting to move towards it with the drill plan that we have planned on Oryx Hill, a very large area. And just putting that in context, you can see on the top we have a resistivity image which shows you that unit, which is hosting the POWERLINE and the Oryx Hill deposits. It goes over 16 kilometers. The POWERLINE deposit we've drilled off over a strike, east-west strike of 1.2 kilometers. Do we know what's in that other 16 kilometers? No. We've got that soil anomaly you can see down at the bottom as we go to the east, which suggests that it's potentially goes to the east, but to the west, we're really excited about what we're seeing there, and we can see it in the geophysics. We know that that's a preferential host unit, so certainly we want to step out and test it this year. The conceptual model, for those of you that want some of the geological details, I don't see a huge number of geologists except for mine in the room, so I'm not going to go through that a lot. But an intrusion-related gold system, these can be very large systems. Do we know where the intrusion is? Not yet. There's still a lot that we have to understand on this property, but we're starting to put together all the pieces in our drill program this year. And here you can see just another snapshot of just how big that area is, and the drill targets that we plan to hit. Some of those large black circles are some of the regional targets which we plan to drill this year. We probably won't drill all of them. We tend to sequentially drill a selection of them, see what the geology looks like. You can't see the red dots that go down the highway to the south, but we've already drilled holes 2, 4, 6 kilometers to the south, testing some of those other resistivity highs that you see in the geophysics. So 80% of our drill program will be focused on very safe adding ounces resource growth. 20% will be focused on testing some of these regional targets. And why is that? Because if we make a discovery that's 2, 4, or 6 kilometers out from our existing area, and it's potentially continuous, this could be a very, very large deposit. I'm really happy with 4 million ounces. I'm really confident that we're getting this towards a tier 1 asset, but really we owe it to our shareholders to test some of those regional targets before we start to infill. And I get asked, well, why don't you just infill it, do a feasibility study? I don't think we're ready yet. We really need to test some of this regional potential, and that's part of the excitement of discovery, which Banyan really is presenting to shareholders in 2022. Infrastructure is a huge advantage to us. You can see that main highway right through the property. The Yukon government committed $63 million to start upgrading that road. That work is supposed to start this year. That power line that you see going right under the power line, over the power line deposit, it was just constructed and energized in January of 2021. So a brand new power line with capacity. It has 2 mines that it services right now. It's a 138 kilovolt line. It's only energized to 68. When have you ever had a project where you actually had a power line built across it that already had capacity for a mine? That is a huge advantage. The cleared square in the middle, that's the substation which goes out to Victoria Gold. So year-round roads, cell phone service, and actually the First Nation just signed a deal with Northwest Tel to help improve that with all the development corporations to improve that telecommunications, the fiber optic cable networks in the Yukon. That's a huge advantage to us as well. And then the key question any investor has, well, that's nice, you got lots of gold, but can you recover it? Well, we plan a very robust metallurgical program this year. In 2021, we did bottle rolls on our pulps, which is very fine material. Came back from 90% from the Airstrip and the POWERLINE deposit, from oxide and sulfide. And that to us is very encouraging that this is a potential open pit heap leach mineable project. It's not conclusive yet. We are doing a very large program. We're using the same company that Victoria Gold is using to do all of their grade reconciliation and their metallurgical work, Forte Analytical. And they've given us advice on various different shapes. So we have column tests ongoing now. We started some selective grain size work. We're starting some mineralogy work, really trying to understand that so that when we go into the PEA, we're ready. And metallurgical work takes time, as many of you know. Victoria Gold's full leach time is 150 days, so none of this happens in a blink of an eye, and that's why we're starting it early, but really encouraged by what we're seeing. And also point out in that photograph that the sulfides, that the crystals there that you see, those are arsenopyrite crystals, which are a sulfide mineral. And you can see the gold is occurring as free gold in between fractures in the crystal. So the sulfide existed like a sponge, and the gold-bearing fluid came in, and the gold was emplaced in the fractures, which makes it very different from your typical sulfide deposit where the gold is in the crystal matrix of the sulfide mineral. So that's really encouraging to us, and it's probably why we're seeing the rapid leaching that you see in the results from the bottle rolls there, as well as we're seeing lots of visible fine gold. So pretty encouraging results to start with. You know, the other part of the mining industry, and something that Yukon explorers do very well, is I think we are next generation explorers. We take the ESG side very seriously. You know, I've been following in the footsteps of the great work that's been done by Victoria Gold and Alexco right beside us. I'm working with the same First Nation, the Notchonaik-Dun First Nation. I've also been working in the Yukon for most of my career. Spent a lot of time working with First Nations. Actually, way back in 2003, I had a deal done with 11 First Nations all on side. And then in 2012, long before I was even the CEO of Banyan in 2016, I started a charity along with Victoria Gold, working with schools and First Nations. And you know, that's really helped because people know me in the communities. They know I'm passionate about the youth of the Yukon and First Nations in the Yukon. And it's something that I continue to be passionate, and Banyan, it's one of our main focuses, is really making a difference. So we've given out over $1.5 million, funded over 170 projects in every community across the Yukon, many First Nations, and this year we just gave out another $300,000, really focused on the impacts of COVID, as well as reconciliation and the other categories of projects that we work on. So that, you know, really sets us apart, and we're well known in the Yukon. So, you know, Banyan has a very clear vision forward. We're very focused on adding ounces, but we also know that we need to start getting ready for that PEA and really optimize the economics. We do envision doing the PEA as a standalone project. Many people says, well, Victoria Gold's down the road. They're a big shareholder. Are they looking at you? I don't know. That's for down the road, and whatever happens, Banyan will consider the best option for shareholders. But for us, this PEA will be based on a standalone project, because I believe we have a Tier 1 asset, and Tier 1 assets, you should do the PEA as a standalone project. Yeah, there would be benefits for Victoria Gold. They could ship the carbon to their existing infrastructure. There'd be all kinds of synergies if they were to purchase a Banyan. But really, what we need to achieve is to get this project to a Tier 1 assets level where we can see 200,000 or 300,000 ounces per year for 10 years, and that's really what's going to generate value for our shareholders. Many will have noticed that a couple of weeks ago, we had an update on the underlying property options. Previously, we had acquired the northern claims on this map, which were owned by Alexco in the original option that we did in 2017. The middle portion, which is called the AurMac Property, was owned by Victoria Gold, and the whole southern area we own 100%. 2 weeks ago, Victoria Gold purchased the underlying royalty and payment obligations that we have to Alexco. So we now have earn-in payments to Victoria Gold within the next two and a half years, as well as eventually grant them an NSR, which we can buy down to 1% for a fixed amount. So that ownership change is something that we just announced in the last couple of weeks. So we've been rapidly advancing AurMac. Just to remind you of how short a timeline this has been. We optioned the property in summer of 2017, did very small programs through 2017 and 2018. The first sizable program, which was only 4,500 meters, was 2019, and that's what delivered that original resource of 900,000 ounces for $2 an ounce of an exploration cost for our shareholders. The financing in 2021 was pivotal in giving us that 30,000 meters. We think we're adding ounces for our shareholders at $5 to $6 per ounce, so still a pretty good value and leverage to the price of gold for our shareholders' dollars. We're starting to do all the other parts to de-risk this project, from the baseline environmental work, the metallurgical work. We'll start some of the geotechnical drilling this year to help understand pit slopes and move towards that PEA to really show the value of this project and what our team has developed for our shareholders. And if that's not enough, so we've got 4.2 million inferred ounces, some additional indicated ounces in total. That includes our Hyland project, which was the project which we had when I became the CEO back in 2016. You know, it's a pretty exciting project in itself, and if someone's coming around looking for heap leach projects, it's also pretty exciting. You know, grade of 0.85, road accessible in the Yukon, 86% from column leach test recoveries, so pretty interesting in itself. I don't think the time for it's quite there, and certainly in COVID and even now, there's not a lot of reward for dividing your efforts between two projects, but I think its time is coming in what we will see in the fall as people start to realize inflation's real. We were really proud that our all-in cost, despite the inflated price of fuel and other inputs, were still under $240 per meter all in. We have fabulous potential for this to be a tier 1 ounces, and we've got a clear plan to move it forward. You know, we have this resource that we put out today, which, you know, demonstrates the value and that we've done what we committed to do to our shareholders. Our year-round explorations gives us a huge advantage in having results. We've already put out our first of our 2022 results, and we'll have results continuously throughout the year. So thank you to all you've been shareholders. Thanks for my team and our geos who've worked so hard to put this all together, and look forward to great things from Banyan. Thank you very much.